Have you ever noticed that a dog is probably the only animal that does not have to work for a living? A hen can lay eggs, a cow gives milk, and a canary sings. But a dog, it makes its living by offering you nothing but love. Unconditional love. A dog doesn't work to earn your attention, yet without hesitation, it gives you its full, unwavering affection. It's not about what they do, it's simply about who they are. By some divine instinct, dogs know a simple fact. You could make more friends in 2 months by becoming genuinely interested in other people than you can in 2 years by just trying to get other people interested in you. In Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, you'll discover how showing real interest in others, not trying to impress them or sell them something, can help you build stronger, more meaningful connections. First published in 1936, it is a timeless classic that still stands relevant today. Part 1. Fundamental Techniques in Handling People. If you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive. George B. Johnston, a safety coordinator in Oklahoma, used to enforce hard hat regulations with authority, but workers would often ignore him after he left. Realizing that this approach was not effective, he tried a different tactic. Instead of commanding, he politely asked if hats were uncomfortable or ill-fitting. He then gently reminded them of the safety benefits. This new, more empathetic approach led to better compliance without hurting the ego of the workers. While it is a common human tendency to judge or criticize others, criticism is useless. It puts a person on the defensive and usually makes them strive to justify themselves. Criticism is also dangerous because it wounds a person's pride. It hurts their sense of importance and arouses resentment. B.F. Skinner, the world-famous psychologist, proved that an animal rewarded for good behavior will learn much more rapidly than an animal punished for bad behavior. Later studies have shown that this applies to humans. By criticizing, we do not make lasting changes and often incur resentment. While dealing with people, never criticize, condemn, or complain. The big secret of dealing with people. What do you think is the most effective way to get somebody to do something? According to Dale Carnegie, there is just one way, and that is by making the other person want to do it. Remember, there is no other way. Of course, you can make somebody want to give you their watch by sticking a revolver in his ribs. You can make your employees work harder until your back is turned by threatening to fire them. You can also make a child do what you want by threatening them with punishment. However, these crude methods have many unwanted side effects. The only way someone can get you to do anything is by giving you what you want. So what do we want? Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, said that everything you and I do springs from two motives: the sex urge and the desire to be great. John Dewey, one of America's most profound philosophers, phrased it a bit differently. Dr. Dewey said that the deepest urge in human nature is the desire to be important. The desire for a feeling of importance is one of the chief differences between mankind and animals. It was this desire for a feeling of importance that inspired writers to write epics or painters to create their masterpieces. This desire made Rockefeller amass millions that he has never spent. So next time you want to influence people, start with making them feel important. Give honest, sincere appreciation, and people will cherish your words, treasure them, and repeat them over a lifetime. He can do this, the whole world with him. He cannot walk a lonely way. Every time people are interested in what they want, we all are eternally interested in what we want, but no one else is. The rest of us are just like you. We are interested in only what we want. So the only way on earth to influence other people is to talk about what they want and show them how to get it. Remember that tomorrow when you're trying to get somebody to do something, if for example, you don't want your children to overeat, don't preach at them and don't talk to them about what you want. Just show them the harmful side effects of overeating, and I guarantee you that will change their mind. Andrew Carnegie started to work for just 2 cents an hour, and he finally gave away $365 million by the time he died. He learned early in life that the only way to influence people is to talk in terms of what the other person wants. Part 2. 6 ways to make people like you. Do this and you will be welcome anywhere. 100 years before Christ was born, a famous poet remarked, "We are interested in others when they are interested in us." All of us, be the workers in a factory, clerks in an office, or even a king upon his throne, all of us like people who admire us or become interested in us. If you want others to like you and you want to develop real friendships, become genuinely interested in other people. A simple way to make a good first impression. At a dinner party in New York, one of the guests, a woman who recently inherited a large sum of money, was eager to make a lasting impression on everyone. She spent a fortune on expensive clothes and jewelry, but she had done nothing about her face. It radiated sourness and selfishness. She didn't realize what everybody knew, that one's facial expressions are far more important than the clothes they wear. American steel magnate Charles Schwab once said that his smile had been worth $1 million, and he was probably understating the truth. His personality, his charm, and his ability to make people like him were almost entirely responsible for his extraordinary success. And one of the most delightful factors in his personality was his captivating smile. Actions speak louder than words, and a smile says, "I like you, you make me happy, and I am glad to see you." A smile costs nothing, yet it delivers a lot, so smile more often to have a lasting impression. If you do not do this, you are headed for trouble. Remember that a person's name is the sweetest and most important sound in any language to that person. Napoleon III, Emperor of France and nephew of the great Napoleon, boasted that despite all of his royal duties, he could remember the name of everyone he met. His technique? It was quite simple. If he didn't hear the name properly, he would say, "So sorry, I didn't get your name clearly." Then, if it was an unusual name, he would say, "How's it spelled?" During the conversation, he would take the trouble to repeat the name several times. He also tried to associate it in his mind with the person's features, expression, and general appearance. We should be aware of the magic contained in a name and realize that this single item is completely owned by the person with whom we are dealing, and nobody else. The name sets the individual apart. It makes him or her unique among all others. The information that we are sharing or the request we are taking on special importance when we address somebody by their name. From the waitress to the senior executive, the name will work magic as we deal with others. An easy way to become a good conversationalist. If you want to know how to make people hate you and laugh at you behind your back, well, here's the recipe. Never listen to anyone for too long. Talk incessantly about yourself, and if you have an idea while the other person is talking, don't wait for them to finish. Bust right in and interrupt in the middle of a sentence. However, if you want to win friends and influence people, do the opposite. The best way to engage others in conversation is by becoming a great listener. Be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. People love to talk about themselves. You can leverage this tendency among people by being a good listener. Remember that the people you're talking to are 100 times more interested in their problems than they are your problems. A person's toothache means more to that person than a recession in Germany or an earthquake in Mozambique. Think of that next time you start a conversation. Everyone who had been a guest of Theodore Roosevelt, the 26th President of the United States, was astonished at the range and diversity of his knowledge. Whether his visitor was a New York politician or a diplomat, he always knew what to say. But how did he do it? The answer was quite simple. Whenever Roosevelt expected a visitor, he sat up late the night before, reading up on a subject in which he knew his guest was interested in. Roosevelt knew, as all leaders know, that royal roads to a person's heart is to talk about the things that they treasure most. So, to build a genuine connection, talk in terms of a person's interests. How to make people like you instantly. Philosophers have been speculating on the rules of human relationships for many years. Out of all that speculation, there has evolved only one important rule. However, it is not a new rule. This rule is as old as history. Confucius preached it in China 24 centuries ago. Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism, taught it to his disciples in the Valley of Han. Buddha preached it on the banks of the holy Ganges 500 years before Christ. The sacred book of Hinduism taught it 1,000 years before that. And Jesus taught it among the stony hills of Judah 19 centuries ago. The rule says, do unto others as you would have done unto you. It means that one should act with kindness, empathy, and fairness towards others, reflecting the way that they want to be treated in return. You want the approval of those whom you've come in contact with? You want the recognition of your true worth? You want a feeling that you are important in your little world. You don't want to listen to cheap, insincere flattery, but you do crave sincere appreciation. Make the other person feel truly valued and do it from the heart. Cheap flattery and empty compliments do not work. Part 3. How to win people to your way of thinking. You cannot win an argument. Opera tenor John Priest, after he was married nearly 50 years, once said, "My wife and I made a pact a long time ago, and we've kept it no matter how angry we've grown with each other. When one yells, the other should listen. Because when two people yell, there is no communication, just noise and bad vibrations. The only way to get the best out of an argument is to avoid it. A man convicted against his will is of the same opinion still." Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the United States, once said, "If you argue and rankle and contradict, you may achieve a victory sometimes, but it will be an empty victory because you will never get your opponent's goodwill." You cannot win an argument. You can't, because if you lose it, you lose it. And if you win it, you lose it. Do not argue. Listen first. Give your opponent a chance to talk. Let them finish. Do not resist, defend, or debate. This only raises barriers. Try to build bridges of understanding. Don't build higher barriers of misunderstanding. A sure way of making enemies and how to avoid it. When Theodore Roosevelt was in the White House, he confessed that if he could be right 75% of the time, he would reach the highest level of his expectation. If that was the highest rating that one of the most influential men in the 20th century could hope to obtain, what about you and me? If you can be sure of being right only about 55% of the time, you can go down to Wall Street and make $1 million a day. If you can't be sure of being right even 55% of the time, why should you tell the other person that they're wrong? Show respect for the other person's opinions. Never say, "You're wrong." If you're wrong, admit it. Have you observed that many people, even when they know that they are wrong, keep arguing to prove their point? According to Carnegie, this is a sure-shot way to lose friends and get mocked as soon as you turn your back. Or when we are right, it works to win people gently and tactfully to our way of thinking. But when we are wrong, let's admit our mistakes quickly and empathetically. Not only will our omissions produce amazing results, but believe it or not, it is a lot more effective in building rapport. Remember the old proverb, by fighting, you never get enough, but by yielding, you get more than you expected. If you're wrong, admit it right away. A drop of honey. Abraham Lincoln once said, "A drop of honey catches more flies than a gallon of gall." In communication, always begin in a friendly way. Always approach people while being kind and gentle. This soft approach can make people change their minds about you more readily than all the bluster and storming in the world. To get something done by someone, first establish yourself as a genuine friend. This friendly approach acts like a drop of honey, effortlessly attracting others' hearts and gaining their trust. The secret of Socrates. Socrates was one of the greatest philosophers the world has ever known. He did something that only a handful of individuals in human history have managed to achieve. He sharply changed the whole course of human thought. Now, for 25 centuries after his death, he is honored as one of the wisest, most influential people in this world. And his method? Did he tell people that they were wrong? Oh no, not Socrates. His whole technique is now called the Socratic method and was based upon getting a yes response. He asked questions with which his opponent would have to agree. He kept on winning on a mission after another until he had an armful of yeses. He kept on asking questions until finally, almost without realizing it, his opponents found themselves agreeing with what they would have bitterly denied just a few minutes earlier. So while talking to people, don't begin by discussing the things on which you differ. Begin by empathizing and keep on empathizing. The things on which you agree, keep empathizing. If possible, that you are both striving for the same end and that the only difference is one's method and not of purpose. Get the other person saying yes at the outset. The skillful speaker gets, at the outset, several yes responses. The safety valve in handling complaints. Most people are trying to win others to their way of thinking by doing too much talking. Let the other person talk themselves out. They know more about their business and problems than you do. So rather than interrupting them with your opinions, ask them genuine questions. Let them tell you a few things. And if you disagree with them, you may be tempted to interrupt, but don't. It's dangerous. They won't pay attention to you while they still have a lot of ideas of their own crying for expression. So listen patiently and with an open mind. Be sincere about it and encourage them to express their ideas fully. Let the other person do a great deal of the talking. How to get cooperation. Think about walking into a car showroom. If the salesman immediately starts pushing you into a car, it feels uncomfortable, right? It makes you want to walk right out. But if the salesman listens to your needs and asks about your preferences and makes suggestions based on what you want, suddenly you feel like you're in control of the decision. You're more likely to buy things because it feels like your choice, not something being forced upon you. No one likes feeling like they're being sold something or told what to do. So if you want cooperation, don't force your decision on others. Let the other person conclude that on their own. A formula that will work wonders for you. Remember that other people may be wrong, but they don't think so. Don't condemn them. Any fool can do that. Try to understand them. Only wise and tolerant people try to do that. There's a reason why other men think and act like they do. Figure out the reason, and you have the key to his actions, perhaps to his entire personality. Try honestly to put yourself in his place. If you say to yourself, how would I feel? How would I react if I were in his shoes? You will save time and irritation. Look at things from the other person's point of view. What everybody wants. Wouldn't you like to have a magic phrase that would stop arguments, eliminate ill feelings, create goodwill, and make the other person listen attentively? Yes, alright, well, here it is. I don't blame you for one iota for feeling as you do. If I were you, I would undoubtedly feel the same as you do. An answer like that will soften the most fussy person alive. The trick is to be sympathetic to the other person's ideas and desires. When you genuinely sympathize with others, you're much more likely to win them over and gain their support. An appeal that everybody likes. When dealing with people, we often assume that people are dishonest or they don't want to carry out their responsibilities. This becomes a self-fulfilled prophecy when we approach people with suspicion. A more efficient strategy is to appeal to others' nobler motives and make them feel that you trust them. According to How to Win Friends and Influence People, most people are honest and want to discharge their obligations. The expectations to that rule are comparatively few. Therefore, more often than not, people would react favorably if you make them feel that you consider them honest, upright, and fair. The movies do it. TV does it. Why don't you do it? In the movies, when the old-time lover proposes to his sweetheart, did he just use words of love? No, he went down on his knees. That really showed what he meant. We hardly propose on our knees anymore, but many suitors still set up a romantic atmosphere before they pop the question. You may have seen in a professional setting that simply stating a fact doesn't impress people. However, when the same facts are presented with pie charts or graphs, or displaying by using a PowerPoint, the audience starts nodding in agreement. A little drama often helps influence people. When nothing else works, try this. What do you think is the most motivating factor at work? Money, good working conditions, fringe benefits? No, not any of those. The one major factor that motivates people is the work itself. If the work is exciting and interesting, the employees look forward to doing it and are motivated to doing a good job. This is what every successful person loves: the game itself, the chance for self-expression, the chance to prove his or her worth, to excel, to win. The desire for a feeling of importance, the desire to take up challenges. All men have fears, but the brave put down their fears and go forward, sometimes to death, but always to victory. That was the motto of the King's Guard in ancient Greece. What greater challenge can be offered than the opportunity to overcome those fears? Throw down a challenge and you're likely to have great followers. Part 4. Be a leader. How to change people without giving offense or arousing resentment. If you must find fault, this is the way to begin. When it is absolutely necessary to reprimand people for their mistakes, it is better to start with appreciation. People often don't mind listening to unpleasant things after they have been praised or their contributions have been recognized. So when criticism is unavoidable, always begin with praise and honest appreciation. But there is a caveat to this rule: how to criticize and not be hated for it. Many people begin their criticism with sincere praise followed by the word "but" and ending with a critical statement. For example, in trying to change a child's careless attitude towards studies, we might say, "We are really proud of you, John, for raising your grades this term, but if you had worked harder on your algebra, the results would have been better." In this case, John might feel encouraged until he hears the word "but." He might then question the sincerity of the original praise. To him, the praise seemed only to be a contrived lead into a critical interference of failure. Credibility would be strained, and we would probably not achieve our objectives for changing John's attitude towards his studies. This can be easily overcome by changing the word "but" to "and." Now consider this revised statement. We are really proud of you, John, for raising your grades this term. And by continuing the same conscious efforts next term, your algebra grade can be up with all the others. Now John would accept the praise because there was no follow-up of an interference of failure. We have called his attention to his behavior we wish to change indirectly, and the chances are he will try to live up to our expectations. Remember that an effective way to correct others' mistake is to call attention to other people's mistakes indirectly. Talk about your own mistakes first. It isn't nearly so difficult to listen to complaints if the person criticizing begins by humbly admitting that they too have made similar mistakes. Admitting one's own mistakes, even when one hasn't corrected them, can help conceive somebody to change their behavior. Never forget to talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person. No one likes to take orders. Asking questions not only makes an order more palpable, it often stimulates the creativity of the persons whom you ask. People are more likely to accept an order if they have to put in the decision that caused the order to be issued. Ian McDonald, who was running a manufacturing plant in Johannesburg, was faced with a huge order, but he wasn't sure if they could meet the deadline. Instead of rushing his team or pushing them too hard, he called everybody together, laid out the problem, and asked for help. He asked, "What can we do to make this work?" And guess what? The team got really creative and came up with a ton of ideas. They all had that "we got this" attitude and insisted that they could do it. And in the end, they pulled it off, got the orders done, and delivered on time. An effective leader will ask questions instead of giving direct orders. Even if we are right and the other person is definitely wrong, we only destroy ego by causing someone to lose face. The legendary French aviation pioneer and author Antoine de Saint wrote, "I have no right to say or do anything that diminishes a man of his own eyes. What matters is not what I think of him, but what he thinks of himself. Hurting a man in his dignity is a crime." A real leader will always let the other person save face. How to spur people onto success. Remember, we all crave appreciation and recognition, and we'll do almost anything to get it. But nobody wants insincerity. Nobody wants flattery. Let us drill down one thing to our memory. The principles taught in this book will work only if they come from the heart. Dale Carnegie did not advocate a bag of tricks. He talked about a new way of life. He talked about changing people. So be sincere in praising and encouraging people to get the best out of them. Under normal circumstances, people leverage only a small fraction of their own capabilities. However, great leaders know that their encouraging words can spur creativity and push people to achieve their potential. Most leaders don't use their magic ability to praise people and inspire them with a realization of their latent possibilities. Remember that people's abilities wither under criticism while they bloom under encouragement. To become a more effective leader of people, praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. Give a dog a good name. What do you do when a person who has been a good worker begins to turn in bad work? You can fire him or her, but that really doesn't solve anything. You can criticize the worker, but that usually just leads to resentment. So what else can you do to change this behavior? If you want to improve a person in a certain respect, act as though the particular trait that was already one of his or hers outstanding characteristics. Shakespeare said, "Assume a virtue if you have it not." This means that if you do not possess a certain quality, for example, courage or confidence, you should act as if you do. By pretending, you might actually start to develop that virtue over time. If you want your subordinates to possess a particular quality, start treating them as if they have that quality. Chances are they will try to live up to their newfound identity and surprise you with improvements. Remember to always give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. Make the fault easy to correct. Tell your child, your spouse, or your employee that he or her is stupid or dumb at a certain thing, has no gift for it, and is doing everything wrong, and you will end up destroying every incentive you try to improve. Now try doing the opposite technique. Be liberal with your encouragement, make the things seem easy to do, and let the other person know you have faith in their ability to do it. They will practice until they become proficient. Great leaders use encouragement. They make the fault seem easy to correct. Make people happy about doing the thing you suggest. One of Carnegie's friends was troubled by boys running across and destroying their lawn. She then tried criticism. She tried coaxing. Neither of it worked. Then she tried giving the worst sinner in the gang a title and a feeling of authority. She made him her detective and put him in charge of keeping all the trespassers off her lawn. That solved the problem. Her detective built a bonfire in the backyard, heated a red iron, and threatened to brand anybody who stepped on the lawn. When you want somebody to behave in a certain way, convey it in a manner that the other person sees the benefit of obliging. In other words, always aim for a win-win situation by highlighting how the other person can be well off from it. What Carnegie emphasized throughout this book is that building strong connections isn't about tricks or manipulation. It is about genuinely caring for others, listening and making them feel valid. Treat people with sincerity and respect. Show them your intent and you will naturally become the kind person everybody wants to be around. Remember, it is not only what you say, it is how you make people feel. Keep that in mind and you'll start winning friends and influencing people.